What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about the Scourge event and depression so far, what I like, what I really don't like, some things that I think need improving for next time, and how to kind of like get better scores and kind of make it a little better for players and how things score out. We're going to talk about all that today, talk about the broken Scourges, the issues there, and how it's kind of wearing thin on my end because of how we're constantly having to fix things and rerun things because something else comes out that's broken. So we're going to break that all down in today's video. Without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, so Scourge events. Right now, like, I'm enjoying this for the most part. Like, I enjoy the challenge, the theory crafting, figuring out how you're going to use certain teams, figuring out, like, the strategy, get it nailed down. There's a little bit of frustration here and there, like, for instance, Node 5 with the Web Warriors. Like, I'm using Web Warriors here, and, there's a lot of RNG, especially with this T'Challa up front, and how he can just delete or almost delete one of your Web Warriors on the first turn, and you're having to constantly restart until one of your Web Warriors dodges, and then it kind of goes on from there, trying to get the defense down and clearing the clearing taunts, getting Disrupt on the correct characters. Like, you don't want Disrupt on Strife, and if he does, then you're kind of in a bit of a pickle there, because then you have to deal with the taunt on Strife. You're trying to go for like Dagger and T'Challa, and yeah, it's a little frustrating. And honestly, Node 10, I like Node 10 better than I like Node 5, because I've got it down to a science in how I beat Node 10. I bring in my Web Warriors minus Ghost Spider, kind of use up things. Get at least Ebony Maw to use his ultimate. If he uses his ultimate, then we're in a good spot. And then I go in with my Dark Hunters and Ghost Spider, and I spread bleeds out, and then I have Striker on Ghost Spider, and I have her spread those bleeds to Magic and Storm, and I put Striker on her because it gives her more damage, and then those bleeds have her damage stat on them, and the amount of bleeds that go out can pretty much delete Storm and Magic just from those bleeds. They do a lot of damage thanks to that. So, there's a strategy to it that's worked out really, really well. Only having to restart a few times. I'm restarting 2 to 3 times as much on the on Node 5. But overall, like, I'm really enjoying it. Like, it's not bad. Like, just like figuring out how you can beat your score, that's great. The problem is that every time I come out with a score that I'm happy with, all of a sudden it comes out that there's a new broken Scourge or something's wrong. And, it's worth bringing up because there's some really bad Scourges in here that just aren't working. And, they can say the player character gains stealth, they gain taunt. It's not working on Spawn with Miles Morales, which is fine. It's working for everything else. That's not a big issue. This whole latte power, this is exclusive to Star-Lord T'Challa. Every time Star-Lord T'Challa steals ability energy, those enemies gain that ability energy right back with this modifier turned on. It's a coding issue with how he steals ability energy. Figured this was going to be an issue in the future when we first got T'Challa. It is now an issue here. He is just giving the enemies back ability energy. It's a little ridiculous, but hopefully they get it fixed. And it's a niche issue because most people aren't using T'Challa. I am, but that's just an issue for me. So we'll see how they get that. Let's see if they get that fixed and how they get that fixed. But things like where is it? No, like Vile Rally, on enemy death clear all negative effects from enemies, that's not working, and that's a significant modifier too. Look at that, it adds like 40,000 on to my score. So there's some issues here where certain Scourges just aren't working, and this is a problem because it means that you're able to basically throw those on and it's free points. And I had already run between Friday and Saturday, I had run Scourge on my own 3 to 4 times. And then I was like, okay, I'm done. Like, I'm happy with my scores, like 1.3. And then it came out that there was 3 broken Scourges. And I was like, and this is the problem. This is with the leaderboards. And we'll talk about the leaderboards too. But because it's based around competition and who gets the best points, if you're competing all on the leaderboard and you're not using those Scourges, well, now the news is out and now players are using those, you now have to use those broken scourges to get more points, which means doing another run just so you can compete. And it's exhausting. It's frustrating. I was happy with the score I got. 1.35, I was like, perfect, that's great. Then I learned about the scourges, and I was like, okay, now I've got to go back in, and then I had to use those scourges, and now I have a 1.43 million score. I'm hoping that sticks me inside the top 2,500. I just want to go for a 6-star Morgan at this point. I will take what I can, but it's a little frustrating, and I'm kind of done. Like, I was already not high on leaderboards going into this, but now seeing what's going on with the leaderboards and how, like, you have to, if you want to compete, you have to do those broken scourges, because you have to do, like, those, you have to maintain those points. And right now I'm sitting at 1355. We'll see how that holds. I'm hoping that holds for the next several days. We'll find out. But then you have this, and I'm not worried about these. Like, these are just obvious, like, burner accounts. These are people who are, you know, they're making it obvious. So, you know, they're going to get banned. That's fine. There's some issues with this Axios guy here. People are questioning it. I don't know. This is something that's on Scopely to investigate. Like, 17 mil, scoring 1.8. I believe someone has said that requires running Scourge 9, which is pretty much impossible for your top tier profiles or your top tier players. So we'll see how that pans out, but I'm sure they're going to be investigating this one very carefully. But then this goes into an issue with leaderboards. Like, here's the thing, like, I don't know, like, unless I go through and look at each of these profiles specifically, I can't make a determination on whether or not they cheated. And I'm thinking most of them didn't. Most players are not cheating. The problem is that when you got something like this, you don't know. You don't know if this player's cheating, and if they are cheating, there's a very simple way to just, like, slightly boost their stats so it can look legitimate, and you won't even know. Like, your top tier players could be using an APK to boost their stats by 10 or 20% and not making it obvious, and no one's going to bat an eye because their collection power is so high that most people are going to assume that, yeah, or actually everyone's going to assume, not most, everyone's going to assume, yeah, that person did it legitimately. They've got the power, they've got the roster, they've got the ability with their current roster to do it. So sure, why not? And that's the scary thing, is that you have your obvious cheaters like these, which are going to get caught and are going to get banned. But, you know, everyone down here, you assume they're doing great. And I'm not saying they're cheating. I'm just saying that if they did cheat, you would have a very hard time telling if they did, because of the way the hacks work. So it's sketchy. And this is the big problem with the leaderboards for me, is that basing around this competition, finding that, like, you know, you have your obvious cheaters, but then, like, if some of these people did, like, the APK hack and slightly boosted their stats, made it a little bit easier for them, you're never gonna know. And that, I think, is a big issue that has kind of contributed to a lot of players getting frustrated with this. But, you know, at the end of the day, this is something Scopely has to handle. And it's going to be up to them to determine how they're gonna compensate, because there has to be compensation for what's going on with these broken scourges. Like, the fact that they let them go, and that's not even to mention the most broken one, which really set me off for a while, an experimental serum, where there was a bug in the first 24 hours where you could send in sacrifice teams, and every time those enemies would lose 30% max health, and then you were just easily clear the nodes. And you could do this with node 10 as well. You send in, like, each Dark Hunter one by one as sacrifice, and then you bring in that full team of Dark Hunters, or like Web Warriors, and all of a sudden, that first wave on node 10 is sitting at 10% max health. You easily clear them, and it's a whole lot easier at that point. That's an issue. And that really set me off when I found out about that, and then it was, like, quietly changed, and there was no communication about it. And I didn't know until I went looking at the Envoy server, and I was like, you have got to be kidding me. That was when I was like, okay, now I have to do a new run to beat that, to kind of use this stuff, because now I don't know how many people above me on the leaderboard use this glitch to score. And that's another thing too, like, we don't know. And this, I've been calm about it all weekend. But, like, learning about this and then looking at the leaderboard and saying, well, how many people above me use this glitch to score, and it leads to big questions about the leaderboard and the integrity of the leaderboard, and that's not good for really anyone. And it does not put a lot of faith in the leaderboard with this. So I said, whatever, clear it, did some more Scourges, get a better score. All right, cool. And then the news came out about the other 3 broken Scourges, and it was like, you've got to be kidding me. So there was a lot of rerunning the Scourge event this weekend just to bump up my score, just to compete with people who were using those broken Scourges to their own advantage, and I had to use it because if I didn't, I'd fall behind a leaderboard, and it's just this vicious cycle that just goes over and over and over again. And yeah, man, I'm burnt out on this Scourge event now. It's the competition with it, trying to compete. Yeah, it's exhausting. So, I mean, I'll give it a few days, and then I'll try a couple more times just to kind of bump my score up a little bit more, see what else I can do. But I'm ready to kind of leave this alone for a while. But also, one other thing I think that's interesting, the efficiency score, like based on how many turns you take to win the node, there's a big glaring issue with this that hasn't really been talked about. And I said in the Envoy channel, it's more, you get more points if you send in a couple of weak teams, wear down the node, and then send in one big team to clean it up, because it's based on the turn bonus of the final team. So you use a couple sacrificial teams, you wear out part of the node, and they send in one team to win, and that clears it up. You're going to get a much higher efficiency score than someone who uses one team per node to clear it. And that to me is a big problem. And it really, it's not a big problem, but it doesn't incentivize clearing the node in one attempt. It's better to use several teams to clear the attempt, because you're going to get more points over that. And that I think is an issue. And I said as much, like, give us bonuses for like the first or second attempts. Like, give us a big bonus per node for using one team to clear it. Like, incentivize using one team. Right now, incentivizes using several sacrificial teams and then a cleanup, because that gets you the best efficiency score. But give us a big boost. Like, give us like 10,000 points for clearing a node on our first attempt. That's gonna help incentivize people to figure out how to beat it in one attempt. It's gonna make it a little bit better for players who are actually, clearing it I wouldn't say the proper way, but clearing it the best way, because they're using one team per node, and they're winning, and they get those big bonuses. So I'm hoping they adjust that for future Scourges as well. But I've kind of gone on long enough at this point. I want to hear from you guys. How have things gone for you with Scourge? Are you guys still high on it? Have the bugs and the glitches and the whole issues with broken Scourges and everything, has that kind of killed your excitement for it? What do you guys think? Again, as always, if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. As always, I will see you guys next time.